This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
You are tuned in to the Foul Weather Podcast, the forecast to your next successful hunt. Coming to you from the home office, Jack's Reef, New York.
A naive observer would think that everyone lies across duck country. The biologists lie about numbers and locations of migrating and wintering ducks. The hunters lie about not seeing ducks. The hunters lie about killing ducks. The nonprofits lie about flooded corn to the north. The biologists lie about the number of ducks on the continent. Lies, lies, lies. On social media, man, it's a bloodbath out there, folks. We cut through the BS in another information-packed episode. That, more about what telemetry tells us and does not tell us, and your duck migration forecast for the coming week on the Foul Weather Podcast. Hey, thanks everybody for listening, and remember to share, like, and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, and Instagram. If you get a chance, we'd really appreciate it if you take a second to rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as share the Foul Weather Podcast with friends. Remember that you know where the ducks are at before the ducks know where they're at. We're really thankful for our every week listeners. You know who you are. Those that never miss a single migration forecast episode each Monday morning. Y'all are as ate up as me about ducks, duck biology, and duck migration. Our dedicated weekly listeners can pick the best days to hunt because the Foul Weather Podcast forecasts fresh ducks hot from the north. Shoot the ducks from the north before they know where they're at. Remember that we are also the only science-based duck migration forecast available. Brought to you by hunters, for hunters. I'm your host, DrMike, coming to you from the home office in Jack's Reef. Boy, it's been a week for everyone regarding winter weather, and the home office is no different. We got all geared up for ice fishing, dug out the driveway twice with the plow, roof raked the farmhouse to reduce weight on the roof. Just north of us in Camden, New York, about an hour away maybe, got 5 feet of snow. Yeah, 5 feet. So y'all that got snow might not be prepped for it, and even 5 inches can be a problem. But I hope everybody's safe and stayed warm. We basically socked in for the week, traveled a little, but hats off to the plow guys that keep Jack's Reef country moving. We only had some short duration school closings and delays, and most folks were, well on their way to work most mornings in the dark, despite that continual pounding lake effect snow for 3 days. None of that's possible without our hard-working plow guys that keep the roads clean and keep us running. So, just some quick thoughts here before we get into the den of lies in the waterfowl world. If you didn't have great hunting in the extreme cold, that's not new and you're not alone. If you haven't found the DU Waterfowl Weather Live episode that we were on last week, just Google Waterfowl Weather Live DrMike, and it should be the first link that pops up. It was great to work with Scott Covert, chief meteorologist for 5 News, Fayetteville, and Fort Smith, Arkansas, and Chance Gotch, meteorologist with ABC 17 in Columbia, Missouri, along with our good friend and colleague Dr. Mike Brazier of DU on this great live event. Towards the end of the show, I show a graphic with weather severity index values, but I also show when we hunted and shot ducks and when we did not in the last few weeks of season. And what you're going to see is that we didn't go hunting when it was the most extreme, but instead we hunted the thaw as ducks redistributed back into thawing wetlands. We already had the mallards and black ducks we were probably going to have, so it wasn't critical to go on those most extreme days when we might have had a migration from the north. Instead, we waited until the ducks redistributed on the thaw in search of food to refuel. Later, we also will talk about what telemetry ducks are telling us right now. Again, From us in frozen Jack's Reef to all of you across duck country, I hope you have a wonderful and safe week as we chase ducks in the cold into the last few weeks of the 24-25 season. All right, again, we are wrapping up pre-orders for foul weather hoodies, hats, and stickers, so make sure you get your orders in if you want some of this high-quality gear. Find them at foulweather.co and click on Shop in the upper right corner. We are not Amazon, so these are pre-orders, and when we get enough orders, they will be finished and shipped, and so thanks for your patience, my friends. They're coming soon. Just like the quality forecast we produce, we went with high-quality Carhartt Rain Defender hoodies. These are what I call forever hoodies. I love mine. They last forever. That is, you won't need another one, and they are weather ready. We also have great Carhartt hats or beanies, if you call them that, with the Foul Weather logo and sticker packs for your trucks and gear to show your support of the Foul Weather podcast. So thanks for your orders, my friends. Keep them coming. Next up, we expose all your best lies, so please stick with us.
Hold on, folks. Don't turn that channel. We've got some really exciting news for you. The Foul Weather podcast has teamed up with Wildlife Strategies. That's right. I'm now working directly with Ryan Delaney of Wildlife Strategies to build value into your land. Wildlife Strategies is already known for quality wildlife habitat management, be it deer, turkeys, ducks, or whatever you pursue. Ryan knows his stuff. Look, I don't add my name to just any business, but I believe in what Wildlife Strategies is doing for landowners throughout the Southeast U.S. and beyond. If you want science-based solutions to create great wildlife habitat, Wildlife Strategies is your best bet. If you're interested in ducks, when we say, may your skies be filled, well, Wildlife Strategies does just that. They fill your skies with ducks. Contact Ryan Delaney today at ryan@farmlg.com for a site visit. You won't be disappointed you did. Ryan covers the southern tier of states, and I'm available to build habitat management plans across the northern tier. Contact us today for a quote. The Wildlife Strategies team sees your property through from the initial assessment and development of a 3-year time frame management plan through annual check-ins and course corrections as needed. Contact Ryan today at ryan@farmlg.com or DrMike@foulweather.co. You won't be disappointed you did. Fill your skies with ducks and your forests and fields with deer and turkey with Wildlife Strategies.
Remember, if you are interested in wetland or other wildlife habitat consulting, to contact me at drmike@foulweather.co. We covered an inquiry from a Minnesota fella last week and got them hooked up with the right people to help them out. So remember that not every inquiry requires a contract and direct consultation. Many times we can kind of cyber scout using online soil and wetland tools. So do feel free to reach out with your questions and we'll see what we can do for you. Our schedule, however, is filling up fast for 2025. We really only have spot for about one more opening for kind of big properties. So if you have interest in a site visit, give me a shout. Our services can also be found by going to foulweather.co and clicking on the consulting link in the upper right corner of the page. We also specialize in small property management for food plots and green space renewal. So let us help you find a way to kill those big bucks on small plots. We do it here at the farm each year. Also, we have a lot of new listeners. We've been asked a lot about how the WSI, or Weather Severity Index, works so well to predict duck migration. So we have a specific page with a link to the WSI info video. Visit us at foulweather.co and click on the migration page in the upper right corner. All right, and back into the main portion of the episode. If you follow social media duck hunting pages, it is a bloodbath out there, my friends. When practitioners try to provide good information to all the great people across duck country, the behavior by my fellow duck hunters, well, it's often pretty gross. Some dude went on a disinformation rant on the Forbes Biological Station page after they had just posted their waterfall survey stuff, and although this dude kind of sounded factual, it was not. But scientists are not there to debate and aren't going to engage. Forbes and Josh Osborne himself is doing a great job of distributing information to the public, but then the public simply twists it into a fairy tale. And that's not fair to hijack a perfectly positive and informative post with your twisted and incorrect view of the world. If you want to bitch, start up your own Facebook page. Maybe call it Duck Country USA Conspiracies and Lies. I tell you though, without knowing what was really going on in the waterfowl world and what was up and what was down and what was right and what was wrong, if you were just taking posts at face value, every time a biologist posts about winter surveys, you'd think that they can't count ducks. Well, even the best of the best pilots, observers, and pilot biologists must be lying to me because I didn't see any ducks. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service post got some special hate comments about how refuges need to go away and that private landowners are holding all the ducks. All right. First, maybe a lot of people don't understand that many, if not most, national wildlife refuges have huntable portions for waterfowl. Second, nobody is lying to you. Ducks exist, and everyone is aware that the duck populations are down. A common post is, quote-unquote, paper ducks, which means that they are on paper but don't really exist. We've covered this before. This is probably a thing to some extent, but it isn't why you aren't seeing ducks either. You probably just suck at duck hunting. All right, so a bunch of this is tongue-in-cheek. Don't take this stuff personally, people, all right? So you probably suck at duck hunting. So go ahead and admit that right now. If you run on private land and don't have proper food and sanctuary, you aren't going to have ducks. You suck at duck hunting. If you can't find public ducks on this continent, you also likely suck at duck hunting. So just because you aren't seeing ducks and a dude flying a plane is seeing thousands upon tens of thousands of them doesn't mean they're lying to you. There's nothing in it for them to be doing that. So let's get that clear. Further, there are a lot of good folks working on refining the duck population estimates. The counts still do a good job of detecting trends in duck numbers, and these are really an index to the population anyway. They are not a total count, never have been, and they never will be. There are actually way more mallards out there beyond the scope of the survey area than we even count. But here's the biggest part of it. If harvest isn't a major contributor to duck population change, which we know it is not, then what's the difference if the numbers are off? We are just going to adjust how we estimate the population, potentially in the future, and the trends are still trends. Ducks increase and ducks decrease. We know that. There's no revelation there. But boy, you'd think from all the posts that there aren't any ducks anywhere. In my estimation, there are 4 types of people on social media. 1, those that have ducks but act like they don't and complain. Folks that are just bad at hunting and don't do a good job of finding ducks and complain. People who just watch and never post no matter whether they are on or not on ducks. And then the rarest of them all, the folks that post that they are having success. So what do we end up with? Pretty much a pile of garbage as far as information when we look at social media. And it creates a negative feedback loop, making everyone think the sky is falling and ducks don't exist. Last year, in the cold, ducks showed up and people shot ducks, period. The same thing is happening this year. So just get out, scout, and find some ducks. Because when it comes to social media, everybody lies. And man, if you are an out-of-stater and you go on some state's Facebook or other social media page, stop asking about places to hunt. Just stop it. Nobody is going to just give up their best spot, especially to an out-of-stater, which is like a, swear word. Maybe at least state that you're a veteran or taking a kid hunting. It's obviously tongue-in-cheek comment, but that seems to be the only way that people spill their guts or give information to other folks. Oh, and if you're from out of state, you might think about finding a way to go with a local friend or having a license plate from that state. The tire slashing at boat ramps of out-of-state licensed trailers and trucks is just ridiculous. But it happens. Anyhow, go back and listen to episode 67, Why Every State Needs a Draw Hunt for Ducks, because obviously competition and overcrowding are a duck hunter's worst enemy. Otherwise, everything noted above, all the lies, all the secrets, all the loose lips, sinks, ships comments, they wouldn't exist. A few other lies and rhetoric we've seen flying around too, and that continue to surface despite that we and others have debunked is, quote unquote, that we really need to limit harvest in Canada and Mexico because the seasons are too liberal, and that is why we have low duck populations. Just get a grip, folks. The numbers are in. Last few years, just using some approximate numbers, the U.S. shoots about 8.3 million ducks with around a little more than 800,000 duck hunters. Canada shoots 700,000 ducks. So we're shooting 8.3 million. Canada, across the border, is shooting 700,000 with about 140,000 duck hunters. So just because you see big piles and people are up there killing big limits and they're killing brown ducks doesn't mean it's driving the population. It is not. Ooh, now Mexico. Someone recently posted a picture of a group of guys that just piled up redheads. All right, ethically, it looks kind of gross to me, right? Shooting lead for waterfowl in Mexico with giant limits and piling up ducks like that. I don't need to shoot that many ducks. Looks like a crazy good shoot to some people, but how many people are actually doing that? Way less than folks that go to Canada. I can count on one hand the number of people that I know that even go to Mexico to shoot. The comments from people, though, are, that's why we don't have any ducks. Oh my God, that's ridiculous. I did just get a request to go into the weeds with the numbers about this from a listener, but we can't certainly dig into all those numbers by species today, but I will a bit more, probably in an episode, in the off-season, spring or summer. Folks, it ain't rosy out there. Duck populations are low. But control your own destiny. Get off your computer, into your truck, boat, whatever. Walk some miles and find the birds. We do really need to clean up the social media stuff, though, because it's not even worth logging on most days. It has great capacity to be a community of duck hunters looking to do the best for duck hunting culture, ducks, and duck habitat. But it's typically just a bloodbath. So grab some popcorn, hang on, sift through the lies, but mostly just go duck hunting. Learn from your mentors, scout a bunch, learn the ducks, and learn how to duck hunt. It ain't happening by cyber scouting. Next up, what telemetry is telling us about where ducks are at and your duck migration forecast. So please stick with us.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
This episode is brought to you by Prime Video. In the small town of Holland, Michigan, nothing is ever what it seems. Behind the tulip festivals and pretty houses lay dark secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Nicole Kidman stars in this darkly twisted thriller about a wife and mother whose quest to uncover her husband's secrets may get her more than she bargained for. Holland, streaming on Prime Video March 27th.
Look, folks, the Farmland Group across the Mid-South is your one-stop shop for real estate brokerage, consulting, management, lending, and appraisals. If you own land or you want land, the Farmland Group is where it's at. With over $500 million in farm sales and growing, Gwynn and Shelby Smith have you covered. Look, if you're thinking about buying or selling, contact the Farmland Group to access their full suite of services. If you already own property and want to build equity and value, the Farmland Group gets it done. If you're looking to purchase a new property, well, they get that done too, and they have access to some of the best lending available. Looking to sell? Get it appraised with the Farmland Group affiliated appraiser. But let's be clear for our listenership too. They also offer farm and hunt property management to create places that attract more ducks and more bucks. Who doesn't want that? More ducks and more bucks. Let the Farmland Group build value into your property. Find them today at farmlg.com. That's farmlg.com. You're not going to be disappointed. Contact Shelby Smith today at farmlg.com and let him know that the Foul Weather Podcast sent you their way.
And we are back. As we wind down from the season and we only have a few more weeks left of duck migration forecasts, the Foul Weather Podcast will be switching gears. At the end of the season, we will do our season recap where we look back at our long-term forecast predictions and see how well we did. We also just recap conditions throughout the season. That's always a great one to listen to for sure. Then we're going to jump into a 4-part series detailing the history of mallards in North America. Again, information-packed episodes all dedicated to the mighty greenhead, so don't miss it. But before we jump into this week's migration forecast, we're going to hit some points about telemetry again, because right now people across duck country are looking to the movements of these tagged ducks as a way to explain where the ducks are at or where they're not. If you have not, please go back and listen to episode 68 of the Kitchen Conversations. Dr. Nick Masto and DrMike debate telemetry. We drive around in a truck. We chat about telemetry. It's a really good conversation about what telemetry does and does not tell us, I think. The main point from that there, though, was that there is no one piece of information that tells you everything. Where ducks are marked makes a big difference, and for instance, the folks in western Tennessee that are marking ducks, well, when you watch where those ducks return to, of course they return to that part of Tennessee. And so it probably is telling you a lot about a small segment of the population in that part of the world. Some of Arkansas big woods marked mallards do the same thing, but then there are folks marking mallards in the summer on the prairies, and they are not concentrated in their wintering areas. They're kind of everywhere. Even on a year like this, where we had a little bit better weather, they're still kind of everywhere right now. I just looked at a graphic of that with a colleague the other day. Right now, I'd suggest that mallards have definitely declined at northern and mid-latitudes, but are they all in the south? Not a chance. I'd bet we're kind of at about 50-50 north to south, or maybe even 60-40. That is, 60% of the mallards are still north of the boot heel of Missouri. That is probably changing daily as cold continues to slowly move these birds south. But remember, it has been years since we've had an early cold, and many of these ducks have just patterned to northern locations, and they're trying to hang on. One of the things I want folks to think about is not get too excited about one telemetry project. None of them are the answer to all your questions, and we should never act like they are. We as scientists also need to stop posting on social media about this stuff in a way that can be interpreted incorrectly. The posts really need to have a lot of content so that hunters don't misinterpret them. I do find it comical. I do find it funny how waterfowl surveys that cover thousands of miles and count hundreds of thousands of ducks aren't trusted by hunters, but what a single duck did one time is gospel. As I've said, I stopped conducting telemetry projects because there is a lot of good science going on right now about them that's going to determine their utility and biases to a greater degree than we know about now. I actually just mailed 12 unused units to a colleague because we are just putting our own telemetry work on a pause until the dust settles. I'm not saying anything is wrong with telemetry. It's just that right now, the risk for the investment, to me, is too great. Anyhow, no one piece of information is the ultimate answer, and scientists and managers use the collective information available to make the most informed decisions possible. And also remember, most of these folks doing all this great work are also duck hunters alongside you in the marsh, so there's no conspiracy theory. It's all so much more boring than that. And my favorite is that we have long seasons, count so many ducks, and have high bag limits because you, quote-unquote, have to follow the money. Quit embarrassing yourself by stating this BS. No waterfowl biologist is in bed with a shotgun shell company or other industry making sure the seasons are long so they make money. None of that exists. If it does, where's my cut? I'll kiss the ring. I'll do the, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. Oh boy. Anyway. Again, it's all so much more boring than that. The science simply says ducks can handle the current season length and the current limit, and that ducks will once again increase in abundance with improved prairie conditions. Heck, it's happened over and over again. It happened after the low of ducks in 2005, and it will happen again. Be patient, my friends. I know that sounds boring, but that's just the reality. And remember, I'm pulling for you. We're all in this together. And keep your stick on the ice. Or whatever red-green show quote you'd like to insert here. My Canadian friends know what I'm talking about. All right, on to this week's forecast. I sure hope that everyone has been getting into them this week and hopefully will into next week as well. The forecast continues to stay cold, but it does certainly moderate this week for the Central and Mississippi Flyway folks. Mostly dry all week, but a system looks likely to work through the mid and deep south of the Mississippi Flyway this coming weekend. Greatest likelihood of further mallard migration south into the lower parts of the Mississippi and Central Flyway is through Wednesday, but then winds turn kind of due westerly and even south, coming out of the south for much of the weekend. Overall, everything this week, other than some mallards continuing into the mid and deep south of the Central and Mississippi Flyways early in the week, is going to be local movements. So we really need to think about metering pressure, providing sanctuary, and scouting hard to find those ducks. The Pacific Flyway really looks like a dud again this week, although some ducks may push out of the river valleys of Idaho and kind of elsewhere nearby on cold nights into areas farther west and south. Overall, the coastal and intermountain regions of Washington and Oregon remain really mild, so don't expect much local movement, let alone any measurable migration. In the Atlantic Flyway, kind of more of the same, but I'd expect early ducks to be moving out of the latitude of North Carolina and into South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida throughout the week, but mostly on Tuesday and Wednesday with somewhat favorable winds. Shallow bays and lakes continue to freeze out in the north and the Atlantic Flyway, looking to increase regional and larger movements of mallards and black ducks. So there should be new ducks most of the week into mid-latitude areas of the Atlantic Flyway. Remember, we're starting to hit that part of the season where kind of ducks are at where they're going to be at. I mean, last year they moved late, but that was an extreme cold event much later than this, about 2 weeks later. So with this reasonable cold we've had early, a lot of ducks are at where they're going to be at until the end of January. Of course, another major cold front or major rain system could still have ducks on the move or reshuffle, so stick with us for your up-to-date forecast each Monday morning until the end of season. And be safe out there, folks. Remember, the Foul Weather Podcast is not responsible for your bad decisions, so be safe and have fun out there across duck country. Thanks for listening, and as always, may your skies be filled, and shoot straight, my friends.